Welcome to the Sport and Society Squad, aka the SAS. Each week, we bring you 3 sport or society stories to break down and give you our sassiest takes. With those sassy takes, we do want to give you a content warning that some of the language on this pod may be explicit. We just ask that you please be mindful of where you're listening and who you're listening with. With that, let's get into it. I'm here with co-hosts Wahid and Ersan. How we doing, ladies?
Hi, friends. These allergies, I think, are kicking my butt a little bit.
It's
Oh
fucked
yeah,
up.
a little low energy. Allergies got me joining your sniffle club, Chelsea.
Hell yeah, welcome. In good company,
Welcome,
right?
welcome, everyone. Well, anyway, hopefully these sniffles go away soon. Praying. But before we get into the playbook for today, I want to go through a quick huddle. We will cover a few sport and society highlights from this past week so our listeners feel like they are in the know with the sports and pop culture world. Here are some huddle highlights that we won't be breaking down in depth, but we think are worthy to note. So in football news, New York Giants legend Lawrence Taylor has officially denied Abdul Carter's request to wear the number 56. Lawrence's number had been retired by the team, so he suggested that Carter select another number to wear that he can make famous all on his own. So we'll see what number he ends up with. Yeah, who would have thunk? These numbers are like real serious business.
Yeah.
I mean, if your number was retired, that's the whole point. And
That's fair.
Like,
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, just
your number. Like, it's like, yeah, I make a name for a new number.
And I'm really curious about numbers like 56 or something. Like, what is the significance to someone about it? I don't know. Maybe his birthday's on May 6th. Who knows? Anyway, this one's a little bit of a the next few are kind of a sad one, so we're going to go through them really quickly, hopefully. But Hall of Famer Steve McMichael has passed at the age of 67 after a long battle with ALS. He was a former defensive tackle with the Chicago Bears and later became a wrestler after retiring from the NFL. So love and light to his family. He left a pretty big legacy. In basketball news, son of former NBA star Gilbert Arenas and 5-star USC commit Elijah Arenas was hospitalized after his Cybertruck crashed into a tree last Thursday. It was reported that he was placed in a medically induced coma due to smoke inhalation. So prayers to Elijah and his family for a speedy recovery. I think I saw a headline saying that they took him out of the coma. But smoke inhalation is serious, so hopefully he recovers from that. And then some more sad news. Hopefully this person also has a speedy recovery, but Damian Lillard, who just returned from dealing with deep vein thrombosis. Yeah, that diagnosis. He suffered an ankle injury during the game 4 against the Indiana Pacers. Dame was assisted off the court after a non-contact injury, like really early on in the game. And it's feared that he may have torn his Achilles. So prayers to Dame. He's going through a lot right now. I think the last year was a bit of a rough one for him.
Achilles tears give me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, I know, but we don't know yet. So it's feared that that's the case, but they haven't really reported anything for sure yet. So we'll see. In London Marathon news, Tigist Assefa from Ethiopia smashed the women's only record by completing the race in 2 hours and 15 minutes and 50 seconds. She beat the current record by 26 seconds, and the person who came in second place was 3 minutes behind her. She smoked everyone.
Can I just say, I'm not a fast runner, but my PR for a half marathon, so half of this, is 2 hours and 4 minutes. So she's going double the speed, double the length. That's insane.
I know, that's what I was going to say. I think the last time I ran a half, it was just over 2 hours, 10 minutes. So
she just lapped y'all. I can't even say what my best is because I've never tried it. So
not yet.
It's going to be 6 hours. But in baseball news, taking my time. I like to take things slow. In baseball news, while his team lost the game, Arizona Diamondback and former Seattle Mariner gem Eugenio Suarez, my Gino, I love him, became the 19th player to hit 4 home runs in a single game. So we love you, Gino. I will always root for you. Good vibes, always. I wish you were still on a team.
For some reason, that seems like a crazy stat that there's only 19 people that have hit.
I know. I don't know.
I'm
like, it's so easy. No,
I know. I don't know why I'm like, really?
I mean, 4 home runs in one game, though, is pretty impressive.
For one player, I get it.
How many times do you think in a game you're up to bat? Like 6?
I don't know. I should count the next time I'm at a game. You're like, what are the odds? What are the odds of?
Yeah, like what are the odds that every time you get up, you just hit a home run?
2 and
there's 9 innings. Then on average, it's I don't know. I'm not a. Moving on. In society news, this one's a little bit of a downer too. Y'all, I'm so sorry today. Former RuPaul's Drag Race star Jiggly Caliente died this past weekend at the age of 44. Their family shared that the star had previously experienced a serious health setback. So sending love and light to their family, friends, and fans as well. So a lot of love out into the universe today. There was some hard things happening this week. In Real Housewives of Beverly Hills drama, star Dorit Kemsley. Dorit?
I don't know.
Dorit.
Come on, how am I the one who knows this, ladies?
I haven't gotten into that pipeline.
Sorry.
Yet.
Well, she officially filed from divorce from husband PK. The couple had announced their separation last spring and now have taken the next step to end their partnership. So, love to them. Good luck to that whole situation.
I will say the only reason why I felt like the crossover-ish is, Bozeman St. John, or Badass Bose. Like, she's, was the chief marketing officer at Netflix. No, okay. Well, never mind. But she was on...
What is the crossover?
She's the crossover, so if you don't know her...
Okay. We have homework to do, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, in Hunger Games news, I think we all can understand what's happening now. But in Hunger Games news, fans get ready. Casting is underway for the 5th installment, 6th movie, parentheses, The Hunger Games Sunrise on the Reaping. It was announced last week that Jesse Plemons, aka Kirsten Dunst's husband, was added to the cast and will be playing a young Plutarch Heavensbee. This is really going to be good. I love that casting. It was like
snaps.
Spot on.
Yeah. Hunger Games.
Yeah. We are a little behind in sharing this one, but good news for Kate Middleton after her cancer diagnosis that took the world by storm last year. The Princess of Wales has now shared that she's completed treatment and is in remission. So this means she's also back to royal duties after a pause for her health. So glad she's feeling better. Also, she couldn't take a little bit more of a break.
I know. I don't know.
We didn't report on this early. I feel like
no, I don't think. I think we reported that she had cancer.
Yeah,
she's back
for a while, hasn't she?
It's only been like 2 weeks that she's been officially back
in public.
Yeah, like she's
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I think she's
so welcome back.
Yeah,
welcome back.
Welcome back. Well, we've also done our fair share of Oscar-related content. But in news last week, it was shared that the Oscars have updated some rules for 2026, including now voters having to actually watch the nominated films to cast a vote in final round voting. Which, how the fuck was that not happening before?
Right?
What?
What the fuck?
How is that? How is that a new rule? Is
so
it because
people were just voting off vibes? Like
vibes.
What?
Yeah.
Which would make sense based on sometimes being like, how did that movie win anything?
That's true.
Yeah, now that makes a lot of sense.
They're like, I don't want to be biased.
Crazy.
By watching
it has to be an updated rule.
What? How many years later? 100 awards later, like seasons later? Like
well,
what?
Did they ever take it away? I don't know. Like how many times have these rules changed?
Well, what a what
Anyway,
what a what a
What a
what
waddle.
a waddle. Teletubbies.
Wonderful world. Katy Perry.
what a huddle. Let's get into today's playbook. Bam. So for today's playbook, we'll just be starting by discussing how the heck NFL Draft Day works. Then we will recap the Draft Day drama with Shadura Sanders. And lastly, we will finish by breaking down the Met Gala.
Ooh.
With that, I'm going to kick us off with our first topic, and that is the NFL Draft. So that happened this past weekend. And I think last week I covered the WNBA draft, or the week before last. So it's a little bit different than the background of the WNBA draft. So I'm going to get into it. But for history's sake, because I know Wahida likes a good fun fact, the first draft was held in
Chelsea doesn't.
I know. What the fuck?
She doesn't like fun ones. She just likes facts.
Well, Wahida's always coming with a fun fact, like out of nowhere. She's like, fact. But yeah, so the first one was in 1936, and it has been held every year since. And this past draft was held in Wisconsin and like Lambeau Field. So for a long time, it was like in one location. And I think back in 2015, they started like people could bid to where the draft could be. So what, the WNBA draft is like a 1-day thing. This starts, there's a total of 7 rounds in this draft. There's 32
adventure.
Teams. Yeah, there's 32 teams, and there's a total of 257 picks for this draft. And it stretches over multiple days. So it's not a 1-day, 1 evening thing. So first round was on Thursday, and then they have rounds 2 and 3 on Friday, and then the remaining rounds 4 through 7 on Saturday. So it's like multiple days, primetime television. Whereas like the WNBA draft, they can make trades for picks up until the night before. The NFL draft can happen throughout the whole draft. They can be making trades and deals. So seriously, go watch the movie Draft Day. I know I've like literally talked about it for the past 3 weeks.
Harrison's watched it like 6 times already.
But I did
literally.
preparation for the NFL draft. I was like, let me rewatch this. It's like a good movie, and it gives you a lot of background. So like I said, it's a huge primetime media event. Like, for example, here's an actual real crossover. In 2019, it was in Tennessee. And for example, Taylor Swift made appearance during the draft to announce her new single, Me.
I remember this.
Yeah, and then like did a tour of Tennessee. So definitely star-studded event. And players that are going to be drafted, they go all out with their fits, and it's a whole thing. Draft weekend itself, if people like are following it, are like watching the things live. I think you said, Chelsea, was listening to it on your run. Like,
oh yeah, that's how we realized that maybe we hadn't covered this for the pod last week. I was on a run, and we get done, and Sean just takes off his headphones, and I'm like, "What were you listening to?" And he goes, "The draft," and I'm like, "What?" He's like, yeah, the NFL draft's happening right now. He had 200 text messages when we got home. I was like, excuse me, what the fuck? It's as if you're part of this?
Like, yeah, like he's in, what do they call them, the war rooms?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, we really need the community.
In order to be a drafted player, you have to be out of high school for at least 3 years. So there's no straight from high school pipeline.
Whoa.
You don't have to have gone to college, but that's pretty much the case. So it's not a requirement. College is not the requirement, just 3 years separation from high school. But most of who get drafted is college players. Sometimes there's like people that are drafted from like the Canadian Football League, the German football, like some like that. Those are like sometimes people can get drafted from there. So they have teams are on the clock. So that's like how much time, and it varies. So for round 1, the first round, they have 10 minutes to make their selection in the first round. And then for the second round, they've got 7 minutes, and then 5 minutes for round 3, 4, 6, and then only get 4 minutes in round 7 to make a pick.
Okay, Avant.
I kind of love that. It's kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, and having multiple days, it kind of makes sense because, like, at some point, especially when you get further down on the draft, you have your strategy, and there's not as much like crazy trading
On
that
the
surprises.
Yes, true.
But like, if a team does not make a decision within its allotted time, the team can still submit its selection at any time after its time is up. But the next team is then free to make a selection, like possibly taking that earlier
take
pick.
that.
So that's a possibility. It's happened before, but it's not usually that big of a thing.
Wait,
But
can I ask? You can submit, and as soon as you submit, after you've passed your time, you get that person, or they have to wait till everyone the rest of that round has to.
no,
No,
so you can submit at any time, but as soon as your time's up, then
the next
Yeah,
clock
but
starts.
if like your time is over and someone else is going, if you say two people are picking the same person, if I just submit mine quicker, then I'll still get it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you have one, and I think, like, I was reading, like, for example, why a team didn't get it was because they were in negotiations, like, with another team trying to, like, finalize a trade, and so it didn't get finalized before the time was up. And so sometimes, the next team doesn't want that pick, so then they can,
It doesn't matter.
yeah,
They
and
take it.
sometimes want that pick and they take it. So, um, uh, and teams are allowed to trade picks for the next 3 draft cycles, but no more than that. So you can't do more than 3. So you can be like,
Out.
you
Like
okay,
3
Meg,
years out.
you're gonna get your like first round draft pick for, like, in 3 years. Again, that's the farthest you can go.
That makes sense. Yeah, no. For the next draft first round draft pick for like 10 years out. Like
Yeah.
how do you plan for that?
We're
That
gonna
makes
make a
sense. 3
dynasty
years.
today.
Yeah.
The college players coming up, and then there's these things called compensated
Compensator
comp,
compensation
compensatory
compensation to
yeah,
Compensatory?
sounds the
compensatory.
best. That sounds right.
I don't know.
I
English
don't
was
know
my
though.
third language, so we might want to fact check that one.
And somehow you're still doing it better than me. I don't know.
That's what he does, flex. So in addition to the 32, the teams getting their picks, there's those compensatory. There's 32 selections in each of the 7 rounds, and or a total of 32 that are awarded to teams based on the players they lost and gained in free agency. So, like, when people go into unrestricted free agency, then that means that if a team lost more agents than they signed in previous years, then they might get like an extra pick
Got it.
for the draft. And that's decided, I think, in like March by like, there's like an NFL committee, like what teams get some extra ones. So that's something I didn't really know. Obviously, I can't even say the fucking word.
Yeah, that one's interesting. Like, so, but is there a cap? Like, there has to be a cap, right?
Well, there's a cap on how many they can give out, but it
Oh,
really
I see.
depends on, like, say they lost like a really high quality. That's not the word I was thinking. Then they might get more than one for that. But usually you're not getting more than like 4. But it really just depends. So that's kind of like the background. What was interesting too that I heard was for this draft, according to ESPN, every NFL team entered in control of their first round selection for the first time since 1967.
Holy fuck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, like, it
Like,
wasn't from somebody else, or like they owned by somebody else.
And there was a deal on day 1 that happened right away, pretty much, which was Jacksonville Jaguars traded up for the Cleveland Browns number 2 pick, and then they snagged Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter. But going into it, that was kind of crazy. That was like, people thought this is weird. And then I won't get into like too much of the draft because I think Wahita's going to be covering the juicy story. But some other things that was interesting was the Ravens drafted a kicker for the first time in franchise history. And as a reminder, yeah.
I know. What the
Jeez
fuck?
Louise.
How did they ever get them before?
Trades.
You just
But remember Justin Tucker it
Oh,
plays for the Ravens, and he's the one that's like accused of like from a
Oh.
bunch of masseuses on sexual stuff.
that
So they
one.
haven't released them, they haven't done anything, but they did draft a kicker for the first time ever.
Bye,
So,
Justin. Like, there
yeah.
goes your spot.
And then kind of in sad news, Derek Harmon, mother passed away after the Steelers drafted him number 21 in the draft. So
Yeah,
she was
that story.
for that, but then that's really sad.
Hmm.
Oh,
I
was
do
it like
remember. I do remember hearing about that story. Like his mom was in the hospital. I think she was on life support. He got drafted, went straight to the hospital, told her that he was drafted, and then I think they like took her off life support. So
oh
that's so hard. Like it was one of his probably like happiest days of his life, but also he
Saddest.
had to
one of the
deal with that.
saddest.
Yeah. But another really lovely piece of that story was that he had some NIL deals. And I think I read that he had taken the NIL money and bought his mom a wheelchair because she had suffered a stroke, I think, a few
Yeah.
years before. And these were
Okay.
like due to complications from that stroke. And he had purchased her a wheelchair from the NIL money, like a motorized one that she could use to kind of get around at home. So sweet guy. Hopefully, his family is wrapping him up with love right now.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's kind of
Yeah.
my little behind the scenes of the draft. But any surprises on like just in general on the draft, considering none of us remembered or knew that it was happening? We're
I
like,
feel like
oh, the draft is happening this week. Where the fuck have we been?
well, we were like, whoops. Like,
yeah.
is it happening? I feel like that was the perfect amount for me.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know about it.
It is cool though to okay, so here's the thing. I think I've shared this with the two of you, but my sister draft weekend is like her favorite favorite weekend of all time. Like I remember when we were kids, she used to write down every single selection, what team they were going to, like what position, everything, wrote it down. So we had like notebooks of all of this tracked back for like I think 3 years she did it for. And so she wrote it for every single round. So shout out to my sister because I knew something about the draft because of her. But there's so many people that get selected throughout the entire process. It's like hard to keep track of. And it was cool to learn though that this was the first year where everyone owned their pick. That's kind of cool. I don't know why. That's a little fun fact that sticks out to me that usually is never the case, and it's owned by other people. That's wild. Like they get to pick for you. And I'm curious. I think that showed up in the movie too, where people will make the selection, but you get a say in it, right? Does the team that actually ends up with the pick actually have a say in who they select?
What do you mean?
Like if the pick was owned by another team.
Yeah.
So like say for example, it's my pick, but you own it's by way of you.
Yeah.
Who gets to make the call on who gets picked? Is it me or is it you?
You do.
Okay.
If it's your pick, you get say in who's getting picked. Like draft day was like cool because it was like they were trying to influence who said team pick, but not a requirement. It's just expected. And like teams do it differently. So like in the movie, for example, like the GM is the one that's like in charge and the coach is not in charge of like the pick.
Yeah.
Some teams, it's more like the coach, like more people are involved. And then I don't know what team I read it is like no coaches, they don't get any absolute say. It's just like the ownership and stuff. So each team does it differently on like how things
get selected.
But the draft is what started like scouting positions because back in the day there wasn't TV. And so the draft started because a player was like the best player and he was like holding out for the most amount of money. And so all this stuff. And then after that, they started to have the draft so that, one player wasn't all of a sudden like holding out. And so then they started the draft. But then in order to do the draft, they needed like scouts to go to these different places because
and see,
TV and things in the same kind of way. And so that's how like scouting positions started. And only like some big teams had them. And then it started becoming a more commonplace. So it kind of like, it's the history of football for you.
Wow.
Just a casual history of football for you, actually.
Just, all the way back. All the way back.
It's just the origin story of football.
Well, I mean, lots of. I'm like, are we? I think it's time for us to transition then, if there are no other thoughts about the draft. But this one was a really big story. This past draft weekend, I think it was talked about the entire time. Like there was not much else covered, which is kind of a bit interesting to think about. But I want to go through Shador Sanders' story this entire draft like season. But earlier on in this season, Shador, who is Deion Sanders' son, he was projected to be the number 2 draft pick in the NFL mock draft. So he was projected to go very high, and his future looked very bright. And that's because he held a lot of Division 1 records in practically everything. So he holds it in career and single season and single game passing yards, touchdown, efficiency, completions, and completion percentage. So awesome resume from the kid. Understandably, his dad is also a freaking Hall of Famer, so he had that his entire life. But and his coach,
Wasn't
yeah.
he also
So
his coach his whole life?
yeah, exactly. His entire life. But come draft day, even though he had all those accolades under his belt and he was projected to go number 2, crickets. Day 1 comes and goes, no Shooter Sanders anywhere being selected. So everyone's pretty like amazed by that because he was projected to go so high. And then day 2 comes around and it gets a little bit messier because Shador gets a call from the New Orleans Saints GM saying like we need a quarterback. We're going to select you. Just hang tight. When our pick comes up, we're going to pick you up. They give him a call. Like there's a phone call. He talks to the general manager. But they don't pick him. They end up picking a different quarterback from the draft class, named Tyler Show instead, which is kind of a little messed up. But if that wasn't enough, he gets another phone call on a private phone, mind you. So this is a number that only GMs and like team coaches and stuff have. So like no one else, it's not a public number. But he gets a phone call from an quote unquote another team telling him that they're going to select him too in the next selection. Ends up being a prank. And at the time, no one knew that who it was, what happened. But it was recently revealed that it was the son of one of the Atlanta Falcons like leadership team that was involved. So, like him and his
What
friends
the
got the number
fuck?
somehow. And he released a statement. The team released a statement. It was a whole big hoopla. But what I learned was that these pranks happen, I guess, more common than not. But it was so much of a big deal because this was such an odd like circumstance for it to happen in.
Wait, so are you saying the original call that actually happened with the
New
Saints?
Orleans.
Because the prank call was for the Saints. He said that he was
Oh,
so
so
yeah,
maybe it was the prank one.
he said he was the Saints and was like, hold tight, it's coming, and he was like, what does that even mean? And so it was this
Oh.
That's messed up.
so it was
Okay.
the Saints that he said. So I was like, maybe that was kind of one of the
It was
same.
just the one and the same, perhaps.
Yeah.
But still, like either way, the scenario's messed up. Um,
Yeah.
but that's day 2. So day 2 goes by, and Arison, you said that was what, rounds 3, 4, 2, and 3? 2 and 3 ends up not going drafted on that day either. So on day 2, 2 rounds go by, doesn't get drafted. So naturally, the theories start flying around, right? Like it's being covered by every single news outlet. They're saying that one, he's either locker room cancer and the teams don't want him because of that. 2, the teams don't want him because, he's Shador Sanders and his dad is Deion Sanders, and Deion is not necessarily known for being, reserved or shy about his opinions about what's happening on teams. And also that was his only coach his entire life, right? So they didn't want to kind of pull that in or have to deal with that. Other folks were reporting that the NFL was kind of taking advantage of the fact that Shadur's name and his like image and likeness had a large buzz like the entire season. So they were kind of pulling him along, leading him along to keep people glued to their screens and like talking about the draft. It was also reported that he only met with the handful of GMs, and those meetings, as reported, did not necessarily go very well. Like they were saying he didn't show up quote unquote professionally, whatever that means. That also has some
Well,
connotations
I
that,
heard people were saying he was saying I'm only going to go to certain teams. Like he was having a
well, he
I'm
only
not
met
going to
with a
play
few
for
GMs
this.
because of that. Yeah. Like he
Yeah.
wanted to play for a certain handful of teams. Um, but then also some folks were saying that, like he was too confident, like overly confident, and they were concerned that that would mean he wouldn't be coachable, because he was like, I am already good. I don't need to like have you tell me what I need to do. And then other folks were questioning whether or not he had the leadership qualities to be QB1. So like the lead QB. But this also didn't help his case because in addition to like the scouting and everything, there's senior bowl, there's combine where like folks get to show off their skills and they get measured for like what they're able to do. He didn't do any of those. He didn't do any draft workouts either. He was just saying like my work, let it speak for itself during the season. I'm not going to go and participate in any of these other things. But interesting move for someone who has something to prove and wants to get selected, right? Even if you're great at
Yeah.
what you do. But yeah, so there was conversation then at that point after day 2 that he might have to go back to college because he still was eligible for one more year of play. So some
Oh
folks were throwing
fuck.
around like maybe he has to go back, which would have been a really big slide from being number 2 prospect to having to go return to your final year of college. But thankfully that didn't have to happen. He ends up getting selected by the Cleveland Browns on the 3rd day. It was really sweet. I think his family just celebrated it like it was nothing. None of this ever happens. They were all very excited, which is kind of nice to know that they just like were there to support him anyway. But I will say, I think one heartbreak throughout the entire situation, like it was all kind of a terrible situation, but the guys who did get drafted ahead of him, like people were talking about them and whether or not they were worth those
Yeah.
spots, and whether or not they were good enough to be drafted ahead of Shador. And in some cases where folks even agreed on the selections, like media coverage on those players was non-existent. So for example, Cam Ward, who was selected first by the Titans, like he was the number 1 draft pick. The media decided to forgo showing his highlight reel and then decided to skip his on-stage interview. So they didn't even cover anything about Cam because they were spending time talking about Shador. So, it's a bit disappointing because like they have worked their entire lives to have like this moment. And yes, they have their careers ahead of them, but it kind of sucks to have it overshadowed by, someone's story the entire time that you're there. So anyway, that was kind of the rundown of the story. Was the entire weekend. He obviously didn't get drafted till day 3 of it all, which is the last day. So, was all anyone was talking about. But I'm curious what your thoughts on this circus was. I'm sure you all heard about it.
Oh yeah. Well, I thought it was, he was projected to be number 2 pick, and then his teammate Travis Hunter got number 2. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I think people were talking too, because there's this idea that if you start getting in the later rounds, that you'd rather not get drafted so that you could then negotiate your own contract without having to do like the rookie draft contract. But they
Yeah.
were saying that it was still like a multi-million-dollar contract that he's getting in round 5. I think his personality, like you just said, like the media coverage alone, which is like, media feeds into it, so it's not all him. But like that has been his image the whole time, even at Colorado too, is like it's almost like his image and his stuff speaks more than his. Yes, he's got stats, but like those feel like second to like his personality, his like family, all that stuff. And what's interesting with Cleveland, one, because like what he ended up being 144 draft pick. So
Out of
maybe
254.
yeah, it's like maybe that's a good humbling thing
Yeah.
that has to work. Because
Yeah.
also the Cleveland is they have like 4 quarterbacks. So not only is he at Cleveland, but he has to
He's like
work, earn his spot. Like they've got Deshaun Watson, they got Joe Flacco. Cleveland picked a quarterback, number 94 in the pick before they picked Dylan Gabriel from Oregon before they picked
Yeah.
him at 44 as a quarterback. So they picked 2 quarterbacks in the draft, and he wasn't even their first pick. So he has to really like earn. Not saying
Yeah.
that he can't, but it's like
Prove
okay,
it.
all this talk. Let's see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like also I agree. Some of it's obviously the media. A couple of things. One, how does every expert though that's like cuz like it was kind of unanimous with everybody that he was going to be like pretty pretty far up the list to be picked. So how does every expert that has been doing this for years totally got that wrong? Like you'd think if there are murmurs that he's kind of a nightmare in the locker room, people would know in the industry. It wouldn't just be like we're finding out on draft day.
Yeah.
Um, so that was kind of weird to me, but I also makes me wonder too, like, or it makes me think, like, I think if there were one or two of these things happening, it could. You can't tell me that there aren't other strong personalities in the NFL, but I think the combination of
All
all
of
of
it.
it, I think again, like you could have your family and a GM could say like that's a team, an organization could say that's a lot for us to handle, but you've got the skill. But then like not showing up even for like the combine, I'm kind of like, are you just not willing then to do the things that everyone else has to do just because? And then like add that on
Are
that you've
you
only had your
resting
dad as a
on
coach.
your, yeah, like your laurel, like you're
Yeah.
resting on the fact that,
And are those stats still legit if you can't come show that off under pressure with, your dad not leading it? Like
Mhm.
that's easy to say as an outsider, right? Because he's obviously done well. But I had heard someone say, I was under the influence of wine, so I don't know if this is real or not. But someone said that him and his teammate also got their jerseys retired at their school
Mhm.
at the same time. And it just makes me wonder, like, and someone was saying, like, the other person maybe had a little bit more accolade for it. And I don't know. I just wonder, like, if your dad's the coach at the college, you're bringing in all this money, how much money are you donating? Like, how much of, like, where you got is, you know, where your
Yeah.
money got you too. Like, not that it's not legit. He clearly has skill, but I could see all of this in combination.
Yeah. I,
It's a little too much.
I think one thing that like really stuck out to me was, they kept having this conversation about whether or not he had to go back to college and how, Harrison, you were saying like, oh, he would get a rookie contract. So going from two to round four or whatever, that significantly impacts how much less, like he's going to make way more or way less than he would have initially made. And in my mind, I was just like, is that really a story? Because it's not like it's really impacting, I don't think, him that much because he does come from an influential and affluential family, like a family of affluent, right?
Yeah.
Affluence. So, like, it's not like this is going to change his life in any way as much as it might for other players. So, I was really interested, or it really kind of caught my attention that that was the story that some folks were running with because he has resources. He's going to be fine.
Well,
Um,
or as a coach, like I'm sitting there like, sure, yes, he has these resources, but like he personally hasn't like it's not because he did something. It's because his father did. So if I'm a coach,
yeah,
I'm like, will that big contract get in your head? Like, will
Yeah.
you crash because there's this pressure on you, or do I start you lower and see if you can really build up
rise
to
up
that?
to it.
Well, and I think this is a good conversation on having between the impact NILs have within college sports and how that transitions or doesn't
That's fair.
transition to the NFL. Because, I mean, like, yeah, he comes from, you know, Coach Prime and like, he said, like, my kids have had to work for everything. I don't give them handouts. So
That's true.
and I'm pretty sure he has, like, out of all college athletes across sports, I think he's one of the top NIL earners. So he
Hmm.
makes
Okay, so he does have a lot of shit of money. Yeah.
NILs. He like has his own podcast, all this stuff. But then I think then you get to the professional level, especially in somewhere like the NFL, that's the great equalizer because it's like a lot of these players are like bigger names, um, have like the
Stronger
legacy,
athletes.
have the sponsorship deals already. Like that's not anything like unique and special that like puts you above. And so then all of
Yeah.
a sudden that's the equalizer was like in like women's basketball or something where like salaries and like things aren't paid. So those NILs are still kind of setting them apart. You get to somewhere like the NFL where you've got a bunch of guys on that team and
Millions making, yeah.
it's like, cool, kid. Like you're
Mhm.
coming in
Yeah.
here gotta prove yourself. And so, to your point, Chelsea, I think this will be, he will either step up and be like, yeah, let me show that I want to be in the NFL and I want to play in the NFL. And it's more about playing than it is about my image and
Yeah.
Yes.
more
Yeah.
about that
Hopefully.
than making money. But like, we'll
Yeah.
see.
We'll see.
Can I end with this though? Like, what a villain origin story it would have been if he had to go back to college and like come all the way back. Like, I'm like, somebody
Yeah.
should have just done it. That story, if he could have and maybe he couldn't rise through that, but I'm like, that
Like
would
a
be
phoenix
epic.
rising from the ashes.
Yeah.
I think one thing that would have been really interesting to watch, but I think also one thing that has not really gotten talked about a lot either is that his brother was also in this draft class, his older
The
brother,
fuck?
and he went undrafted. But the whole time, right, they're covering Shador's story, and his brother Shiloh was like, if they're doing this to you, could you imagine? Like, I don't even know what they're going to do to me, because he is acknowledging like his younger brother is a stronger player than he is. And he was like, the entire time, just right there next to his brother, supporting him this entire time. He goes undrafted. He ultimately gets signed, I think, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a free agent, like outside of the draft.
Yeah.
So he landed somewhere as well. But that, I think that was a really heartwarming part of the story, where like you really got to see two brothers just supporting each other too.
Which, and again, this is the closing time part of this, but literally like shows you that there's probably more to him. Like, he's raised in a good family, there's a lot more going on there, and this image thing is really just taking over, unfortunately.
Wait,
say it. Okay, one more.
You just talked about Shiloh Sanders, and this is like a different story, but I think this is part of like the family relationship. Is Shiloh Sanders apparently fired his father, Deion Sanders, and hired an agent before signing with the Bucs.
Oh,
like
all through this past weekend, or
Deion Sanders was the the coach,
their representative,
kind of like the representative, and so he apparently, after starting the draft process with his dad representing him, he had signed with an agent. So that was our agent. That wasn't working so good. So today I had to sign with an agent, and then he got. So that's also.
Oh, that's interesting. Here I am, like, they're a great family.
No, I mean, I think still so. Like, he's still raising like great people, but that's really cool that he was able to be like, Dad. For my professional career, we need to take it outside of the family.
Wow.
That's ballsy, I feel.
Yeah.
I support it. Not that I want to stop talking about this, but it is time. It's time. I was trying to say it like Lion King. It didn't happen. But if you can even believe it, you guys, next Monday's Met Monday.
That's wild.
5/5/25. What an iconic date. Am I right?
5 times 5 is 25.
Okay. I also have a really unrelated. I mean, I think it's cool.
That's cool.
What'd you say?
Like what?
5 times 5 is 25.
Fucker! Look at you. That's a fun fact right there.
That's a fun fact. It's fun.
I do want to ask. Do you guys say gala or gala?
Gala.
It depends. It's like caramel or caramel. It depends on what comes before or after.
Who you're talking
I don't know.
To?
Like, it depends on the vibes for that day. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call it the Met Gala.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay. I've heard people say gala. I don't know.
Like, is it data or data?
I say data, but I remember my science teacher in first grade calling it data, and I was not okay with that. Like,
I also feel like, sorry, before we go on with the story, I feel like a question like that is hard because you're saying both of the words, and I don't think about it when I'm saying the word, so it influences the answer in a way.
I do say data.
I don't know. Like, you just have to show them the word and be like, how do you say this? As opposed to saying it.
And maybe that can be the next theme of the Met Gala Gala. You know what I mean? Like, how do you say this word? Dress it up. I don't know. Well, anyways, I know we kind of my nose is just running, but I know we kind of talked about the Met Gala it wasn't a couple of weeks ago. It was weeks ago. But, when we talked about the Met Gala last time, it was mostly about the dress code. So today I just want to do like a little bit of a refresher. And we'll start with, first and foremost, the Met Gala is a fundraiser event, which is just to support the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costume Institute, which I didn't really know this, is responsible for preserving and showcasing fashion history. So that's pretty cool. And the Met Gala itself has traditionally been, timed. I don't know what that means in my notes, but the mark of the opening of the department's annual fashion exhibit. So every time, again, I feel like people probably know this, but I've always been like, it's Met Monday, and then I forget about it. No, this is the opening of the exhibit that will be on display from May 10th, I think, for the public to May 26th to October 26th. So this is really like the first big showcase of that exhibit, which makes a lot more sense now that we're saying it. But apparently it raises year after year up to 8-figure sums. So a lot of money for the
And those
peeps.
tickets are expensive, I heard.
Yeah,
Like
but it's great.
$15,000 a ticket?
I think more than that.
Oh.
Yeah, there's conflicting news on the internet about that. So I don't know how much they are. But today I think what's important is to highlight like the theme, but there's kind of like a two-pronged event, like thing going on here. And this is where we got confused last time on the podcast. So there's an exhibit theme, and then there's like the gala theme. And usually the gala theme is related to what the overall exhibit is. And I think sometimes that's where like confusion is, and also like where people are like, what the fuck does, this dress have to do with this? I think it, whatever. That's what's happening here. So for this year, which we really didn't talk about, was the exhibit. The exhibit, which was announced last year, is super fine. No.
Yeah, we did talk about this. We did a whole story on it. She didn't
talk about the dress code?
No, so she didn't. So this is where we got confused. So she talked about the story, and it was the exhibit, and we're like, oh, then that's the theme. Like, how are people going to dress?
Yeah,
but
it's
like
different.
It's different from like the exhibit.
Okay, so the exhibit is super fine tailoring black style.
Yes.
Which is drawing inspiration on a 2009 book from Monica L. Miller, Slaves to Fashion, Black Dandyism and the Stylizing of Black Diasporic, I can't say it, Diasporic, there we go, identity. So it's going to be, the exhibit will be organized into 12 sections, each representing a characteristic that defines dandy style, including ownership, presence, distinction, disguise, freedom, champion, respectability, juke expression, heritage, beauty, cool, and cosmopolitan. So there's a lot going on in the exhibit. I'm going to be in New York this summer, so I'm like, should I
kind of want to go visit this. Yeah, that looks really cool.
I want to see this. So it's pretty cool. But the second part of that theme is the dress code. So the gala and the dress code itself. And I think it's kind of genius. Like, I'm pretty positive, I didn't fact check this, but I'm pretty positive Anna Wintour started this whole thing. But it's such a great way, the gala itself, to use celebrities and artists to create buzz about this exhibition and raise money for it. But that theme is tailored for you. So this is the focus on the menswear and suiting. So I still feel like we talked about this last time, but I think this is where the confusion happens. So along with the theme for the actual gala itself, there's a group of folks that host with Anna Wintour. And this year, we've got Coleman Domingo, Lewis Hamilton, A$AP Rocky, and Pharrell Williams. And then LeBron James will be serving as an honorary chair. So crossover. And then reviving a tradition from the past, which I didn't know this was a thing. They also have like a host committee. There's a shit ton of people on this, but a few people include Andre 3000, Doechii, Tyla, Spike Lee, Janelle Monáe, Angel Reese, Sha'Carri Richardson. So there's a whole list, but they've got a committee, which I think is pretty cool. And then the live stream, which will be all over Vogue's different social media channels. It will be hosted by Tiana Taylor, Lala Anthony, and Ego Nwodim. That's
from
that's on
SNL
me for not looking that. Yeah, I don't know.
I think so.
Sorry, I just got a spam call, so that was rude. So I think this is gonna be cool because there's a critique over the last 5 years of like men just show up in a black suit. So I'm excited for that. But one other question I had was like, what the fuck happens after the red carpet? Like, what goes on in there afterwards. I don't know if you guys have ever thought about that, but it's like the big night for us really is seeing that people on the carpet showcasing like that theme, and then it kind of is over for us and they
For
go in and
us,
do.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah, so I've always
it's a gala, so I think it's a.
yeah,
I mean, they probably have like
I'll
full
tell you.
course like meal. Oh, you're telling
Yeah,
us.
well,
Tell us.
I'll tell you what we do know because
Okay.
apparently it's been very intentional that we don't know. So they don't really want us to know. So I felt stupid and now I don't. But there is a special rule that you're not supposed to have phones, so no social media, and that's like once you get inside the museum. I think, at least I know from the past, that rule has not always been followed. There's a pretty famous bathroom selfie from, a large group of people from the museum. So that was broken. And then last year, there were all kinds of videos circulating social media from Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo's performance that leaked. So that blows, but that's why we don't know too much. But typically the night just includes like drinks, dinners, and then a performance, and then all the folks that attend do get a little bit of time in the actual exhibit itself, which is cool. And I think we've seen posts on social media that show people in the exhibit too, which is kind of cool. And then the last question I thought was kind of interesting just for our listeners is like, who the heck gets to go? Because we see the celebrities, but apparently there's up to 450 attendees that get to go. So obviously we don't see every single one of those people on the carpet. But usually it's a combo of just like up and coming stars, young creatives, and other big names in either fashion, arts, sports, and politics. So I know that's a lot of stuff going on there. I'm personally kind of excited to see, and I don't know if they'll even come, but I don't even want to jinx it, but I'm excited if they come to see Zendaya, Emma
Obviously.
Chamberlain, and then I'd also really love to see like a Selena Benny Blanco, like just fucking rocking it moment on the Met Gala. Like they've been really cute through all award seasons, but it'd just be fun to kind of tie it all together. So that's who I'm excited to see. Do you guys have any people that like you're looking forward to seeing, or like what their interpretation of this theme is?
Well, like you said, Chelsea, I feel like the men don't usually come as correct as anyone else, like during or like for the galas. So I'm really excited to see the guys. Like, I hope that they actually come through because this exhibit and this like theme was tailored, if you will, for them, right? So like they just have to come really correct.
Yeah.
Coleman Domingo and Lewis Hamilton are going to like set the bar very, very high. So the men just need to come correct. Like quit with your boring suits. Like come like full, like with 3-piece, like with all the accessories, everything. I want to see that. So hopefully that will get a show there. But I also love Tiana Taylor in a suit. She looks awesome all the time. So she's going to be on the carpet. I think I'm so glad that she's going to be kind of like centered in like a lot of the conversations we're probably going to see through all the social media. So I know she's not going as a guest, but she's going to rock it. So she's going to set a standard as well. And someone that I don't know if they're going to go, but I would love to see, and I'm going to say this because I'm obsessed with her album right now. Her name is Coco Jones. She was a Disney star.
Yeah.
Currently crossover, dates Donovan Mitchell from the Cleveland Cavaliers, who I think I want to win the playoffs, the NBA playoffs. So hopefully Coco shows up as part of her, like campaign for her album, just rocking like a tailored suit or something. She would
Just
rock
a
it too.
Cavs jersey. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Sorry.
like tailored correctly.
Yeah, like a suit.
Who
of
knows?
Cavs.
I don't know. But it'd be really cool too. That like we're thinking about it just like tailored suits, but I also feel like you can do like a tailored like a suit dress, like something that is still kind of feminine and really
Yeah.
like a gown, but using the same kind of like materials and stuff that suits would. So we'll see. I'm excited for it.
It's always so fun to see the outfits for the Met Gala. And I know sometimes there's always the critique is some years where people will like not feel like they followed the theme, and then they're like, okay, you look good, but like you're not following the
It's not
theme. So
creative.
yeah, so I appreciate people that like follow the theme. There's definitely like, I feel like we all have like the iconic Met Gala looks, like for example, like Rihanna when she like dressed like the Pope, like
Yeah.
that, and like that was so good. So I think I don't know if she's. I mean, ASAP said he was on the board, so she might make I like a good
Hell yeah.
Right.
them together on the carpet would be amazing. Zendaya always kills it. Um, I think Michael B. Jordan would be a good, like, he takes his take on fashion and Taylor too. But yeah, that's like my favorite thing is just to see the pictures and stuff after, and then there's always some sort of drama about people feeling like you were
Yes.
hitting the mark or you were like
Yeah.
insulting the thing or you weren't. I think you said Doechii was on like committee. I feel like
Yeah.
she would, like kill
Oh,
it.
Doechii.
Like her
She's gonna be
style
good.
feels already like fitted tailored, like that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I feel like she's gonna go above and beyond. So, or Kendrick shows up. I don't know. I'm
Oh,
thinking of all of
fuck.
these.
I didn't even
Kendrick's on
think about that.
tour. I don't know. He's on tour, but maybe.
What last year, Angel Reese, she like had
That's
just
true.
gotten drafted, and then she pretty much reported to like play the next like couple days. So you know, it's the Met Gala.
I like this isn't someone that I want to see. I think it's I mean, he might be there, but Law Roach, anyone who is Law Roach's like
yeah.
client. So I know that Zendaya is his big one, but he also I think Taylor's or not Taylor's styles for Celine Dion and Anya Taylor-Joy, who would also be a really good one. So anyone that comes with Law or through Law. And another one that just popped in my mind because this is where I remember seeing the inside of the Met Gala was through Ocean's 8, the movie, and I want to see
yes.
Anne Hathaway. She always kills it. More recently, I think she got a new stylist. That partnership has just been like taking all of her looks off the rails, and she's just been incredible. So I can't wait to see her if she shows up. But I'm curious though if and you might have covered this, but I forget if it's like an invitation or if like people just buy a ticket.
So
because it is a fundraiser, right?
Buy like usually like big companies will like buy and sponsor, and that like is part of like the proceeds for the entire event, and then they'll like partner with a celebrity to do it. So like companies will buy a table, for example, and have a bunch of people come and like somebody be the face of it, or a couple people be the face of it.
Yeah, or like a design, like you, like companies
designer.
or like a house.
Could someone want to send us? Is that what you're implying? Or
I look at
I don't know, maybe
$350,000
for a ticket,
or
which
a
is
table.
wild.
a table.
Like a ticket price is like, I guess last year was like 75,000 for a single ticket. So you can do a single ticket, but a lot of celebrities aren't paying, like you said, Chelsea, full price because they're getting invited by a designer to be their guests or a company.
What brands do you think are going to come, like going to show up, like show up correct? Like I feel like Tom Brown is going to, Tom Brown.
Yeah.
And Ayo Adibri, I think they had a partnership. Tom Brown also, I think but is a partner with Doechii as well, or in some way. So I feel like Tom Brown's going to have some really good looks on the carpet. And I also just thought about Kelly Rowland because she also always looks incredible, and I feel like her in a tailored suit.
Do you think we'll get a return of Beyonce? Because we haven't got her for a little bit at one of these. Like
Balenciaga would be
a good one.
Yeah, I think what was it like Valentino? What was the two like? No,
Prada and Versace. That's what I was just wondering. Like, what will happen with that here?
Yeah. So
another like sorry.
So a good one. He's shown up on the Bunny. Like some of his like
oh fuck yeah, he's gonna be good.
Not in the typical suit. Like
he's not.
Something about a fucking suit, a man in a suit, I fucking love. And like even like if it's undone, like if they take off their coat and they roll up the sleeve, like you know where it's like after a night and they're like it's unbuttoned and a little undone.
Even if they're not wearing a shirt, and I'm like, yeah,
yes.
Even if they're not wearing a shirt, I love the shirt. I will say 2 last things, and then we can stop because I bet you we'll have more tea on it next week. But one thing is like I'm very curious to see if Blake Lively will be there and this will be like her revival, because she always slays at the Met Gala. She's one of those girlies before all this controversy. Like, she's known for rocking the shit out of that event. So I'm curious to see if she does go, what the perception of her is like during/after, because this thing has been a roller coaster. And I'm not going to hate on it if it looks great. You know what I mean? If she's rocking, I'm going to support that shit. But I also say the thing that I like about it, and you kind of hinted on it, Arisan, was like, there's going to be a lot of conversation about what people are wearing and if it meets the mark. And I think it's really important to just like, we'll go slowly. We can have our favorites as they come through. But I always feel like there's such a story that happens the weeks following of like why someone picks something. Like, there's so many things people could pull from the exhibit, whether it's just that theme, like thinking of like openness and expansion, like all of that they could tie in and tailor to that specific person, that I'm really curious to see what those little details and how that artistic vision comes through, that we might at first be like, I don't like that, and then hear the story afterwards and be like, oh fuck, I didn't, because this feels like a big one that you could learn a lot from. So I'm curious to see that, and just urge the listeners to take it slow. We'll have our favorites, but
don't hate too
don't hate too quick.
Well, because there's the like the initial reaction of like what you're seeing, but then once you hear the context and the backstory and like the meaning of it, because I don't think we always get that interpretation just from like sight, that like adds to everything. I think, what was it when they did, what was the theme, camp? That one was one of my favorite ones, where like, wow, you really had to wait to see all of the interpretations and the stories that they were coming up with behind the look.
Exactly that. Well, I think because we're going to get so much content over the next week, that is a place that we're going to hit pause. That's a wrap for today. Let us know what stories you want us to cover, and we'll think about doing that next week.
Yep. And don't forget to hit follow and subscribe to our show on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple, and turn on those notifications so you can stay up to date on all the latest sport and society stories.
Oh, and please, please, please rate the pod. But in the meantime, stay sharp, stay sassy, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace out.